manufacturing and the implications they have on the industry moving forward. We're just going to ask that you try to like, subscribe, and share the podcast, and you can help us out by giving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Andy, thanks for filling in this week.
Of course, it's been a minute. It's good to be back.
You know, usually we give you about an hour. This time we gave you a couple of days. Is that better or worse?
A whole 24 hours. I usually say I work better on deadline, but for this particular instance, I'll take the extra notice. So should be a little better prepared this time. We'll see.
Excellent. Anna, how are we doing this week?
Doing fine, thanks.
Have you ever dropped the "we're not mad, we're just disappointed" on your kids yet? Have you used that one?
For sure.
Yeah. How does that work?
Like the first day.
Yeah. Does that still work? Because I think once my kids got past 10, they just kind of shrugged it off.
Oh, they don't respond to that anymore?
No, doesn't work.
I guess we'll see.
Excellent. Again, if you have anything you'd like to get a hold of us at, it's Jeff, Anna, Andy, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We shoot for going live every Friday about 1:30. To get a notification, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at IEN Magazine. Before we get started, let's go to a word from our sponsor.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
And we are back, and we'll get going with those 5 biggest stories in the industry this week. The first one we're going to talk about is Kellogg's splitting their company into 3 different divisions. Kellogg, the maker of Frosted Flakes, Rice Krispies, and Eggos, is going to split their 3 companies into 3 companies focused on cereals, snacks, and plant-based foods. They also own Morningstar Farms, the plant-based food maker. They said on Tuesday that the spinoff of the yet-to-be-named cereal and plant-based foods companies should be completed by the end of next year. Kellogg's had net sales of over $14 billion in 2021, with 11.5 of those coming from its snack division. So that's the stuff like Cheez-Its, Pringles, and Pop-Tarts, among others. Cereal, which was kind of surprising, only accounted for about $2.5 billion in sales last year, while the plant-based products totaled just over $340 million. These businesses have all have significant standalone potential, and an enhanced focus will enable them to better direct their resources toward their distinct strategic priorities. This was a statement from CEO Steve Killahane, who will become the chairman and CEO of the global snacking company. U.S. cereal sales have been waning in years as consumers have moved to more portable products like energy bars. I know I'm definitely guilty of that. And they saw a brief spike during the pandemic when people were actually sitting down and eating at the breakfast table. However, the cereal and plant-based meal companies will remain headquartered in Battle Creek, Michigan, where Kellogg was founded in 1906. The snack company will have dual campuses in Battle Creek and Chicago, with its headquarters actually in Chicago. So Anna, kind of some interesting news here from a big player in the food market.
Definitely, and I'll have to admit that, like, as I was reading through this article, I was trying to think of how much of that $11.4 billion I had contributed in Cheez-It purchases. It was probably a lot. I don't know.
Absolutely.
As the article points out, and I don't think you mentioned this, but spin-offs are less common in the food industry than they are in other verticals. And the reason for that, I think, is that food companies tend to often already have a narrower focus. They have complementary products typically, versus, say, like a GE, who's famously spun off a bunch of divisions, but they've had a toe in everything: electronics, aerospace. In this case, some analysts seem to agree with the objective that Kellogg is laying out, which is basically that each segment is distinct. They have their own growth trajectories, and they're subject to different trends, so they want to be able to focus uniquely on each division. When they're all competing for the same pool of resources, it probably challenges the smaller performers. And consider how much smaller that plant-based business is compared to Kellogg's snack business is not even close. Yeah. Secondly, I think plant-based has a future, and the long-term growth trajectory of this market is quite strong, but in the near term, we've seen some scale issues with competitors like Beyond Meat, who have been underperforming lately. They've not been very profitable. The market has really been flooded, I think, lately with options. Some of those won't survive, obviously. the prices are still quite high on that stuff. So I don't know. I think maybe Kellogg's having to play the long game on the plant-based side of things, which is a completely different approach than what their snack business is dealing with right now. So, or even their cereal business.
Yeah.
So overall, this feels like a viable move for Kellogg's, I think, and the need for kind of refocusing into those distinct segments.
Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going on with the plant-based food products. And you don't necessarily think of Kellogg's when you think of those products. I mean, you think about the more traditional stuff, Andy, especially like the cereals. I was surprised that was such a low part of their overall profit model. So when you look at this move, kind of short-term, long-term, what are some of the things you see?
Well, first I felt guilty just from a cereal angle because I love breakfast cereal, but I don't eat it anymore, like a lot of people, I think.
Right.
So
You gave it up?
Not that I gave it up, I just try to eat a little healthier.
Frosted Flakes is not
Frosted
it, huh?
Flakes doesn't cut it at this age.
Fair enough.
So part of that is my fault. But also I thought that this has to be a particularly tough pill for Battle Creek to swallow because although the company has indicated that the jobs will stay there, 2 of the 3 companies are staying there, the one that accounts for 80% of sales, that's headed to Chicago. And although nothing's changing for right now, down the road when these decisions have to be made and the big player in your city is headquartered in Chicago, maybe those decisions play out a little differently. So that obviously down the road remains to be seen, but yeah, that has to be a little disconcerting for officials in that city.
Absolutely. No, I think with breakfast cereal, I have not eaten breakfast cereal probably since high school. And I love it.
Really?
I do. I love it. But just sitting down and having a bowl of cereal, it's easier just to like grab something and head out the door. I have also become a huge fan of hitting the drive-through for a breakfast sandwich. So I'm hurting Kellogg's cause here. It really seems like a lot of these moves, guys, it's really trending towards consumer trends, right? I mean, when we look at what's growing, people love their carbs, right? I mean, as far as the snacks, Pringles and Cheez-Its, like you said, you're basically supporting Cheez-Its. I think our household is right there with you.
Yeah.
They do a lot of good stuff, especially like crackers. I didn't realize Kellogg's does like the Townhouse crackers and a lot of other stuff like that. The plant-based foods, this is an industry that people are projecting to hit $80 billion within the next 5 years, like an 11-point-something% year-over-year growth rate. So just a ton of growth opportunity there. And you'd think a company like Kellogg's that has all of that sort of infrastructure that they can put towards those types of product categories might be in real good shape to leverage it. What do you guys think? Could this potentially be a move by Kellogg's to also make things really clean? If they sort of want to divest a little bit, we can see exactly where the snack foods are, where the cereals are, where the plant foods based are.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. I mean, I think that has to cross your mind when you're reading this, that like it makes it, puts them in a much better position to sell off one of those companies in the future. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that.
Yeah, it'd be weird to see something other than Kellogg's up on Tony the Tiger. But
Morningstar Farms, I mean, you could see how that is an appealing buy to a lot of different food companies who are looking to get into that industry. It's a strong brand already in plant-based. And if it's not making them money, which it might not be,
Yeah. It's interesting, though. I mean, I would actually see, even though that's the lowest moneymaker right now, I would see that to be the one potentially they put the most investment into. And like I said, when you look at cereal and where it's trending, as weird as it seems, like that might be the one that goes.
That's the dog?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Andy, you need to eat more cereal.
I will work on that.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Our next story. Solar-powered RV promises endless water supply. This should be a good one. Living Vehicle, a luxury electric travel trailer, has announced its 2023 model, which it describes as a traveling solar power plant capable of creating an endless water supply to allow its owners to remain off-grid longer than ever before. The 2023 Living Vehicle is the first vehicle, trailer or otherwise, according to the company, to produce its water with the Watergen water system that uses humidity in the air to create potable water. The inside system, spelled capital I-N, side system, requires minor maintenance and provides up to 5 gallons of clean, drinkable water per day. The 2023 model also promises luxe furnishings, gourmet appliances, seemingly endless storage space, until you see inside. And spa-like bathing. The living vehicle also includes a creative studio outfitted with Apple products, and the 2023 living vehicle, quote-unquote, breaks down barriers for nomadic homeowners. Andy, I can't wait to hear what you think of this 2023 living vehicle. So,
contrary to what you might suspect, the idea of driving around the desert in at least semi-luxury sounds quite appealing to me. So I looked up the price, and that's just to quash my dreams here. Is
Out of reach.
$340,000 base price. The water gen system, that'll cost you an extra $26K. So once that fantasy was disposed of, I don't know what the market for ultra luxury SUVs are, but probably not. Obviously, there's been a lot of demand from the RV sector in recent years, given that it's hard to go anywhere, hard to fly for a while. So once that was disposed of, I started thinking about maybe the implications elsewhere. There's a lot of pressure on water supplies, obviously, due to just scarcity or contamination or demand from agriculture, and it's easy to see how this sort of system, which started as military technology, could be used to alleviate some of those pressures down the road. So I thought that was a very promising angle for maybe a very impractical vehicle for now.
Anna, how does your newfound love for camping play into your perspective on this vehicle here?
This is different.
Oh, okay.
No, I think this thing looks awesome, but the superlatives in its marketing were sort of irritating to me. I don't know, like if endless water.
Too over the top?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if like endless water doesn't feel suspect, like the line where they describe the RV as having seemingly endless storage space.
Yeah.
Like anyone
It's an
ever
RV,
been in an
man.
RV? Yeah. That seems like a stretch.
Yeah.
Anyway, still, I love the idea of a solar RV. We know that like motorhomes and like pull-behinds are super hard on gas. Like Class A RVs are like 6 to 8 miles to the gallon on average, sometimes as little as 4. For a travel trailer like this, which can weigh up to like 4,000 pounds easily, you're adding like a 30% decrease in your MPG. So think about that. Even if you don't care about the environmental side of things, that's very expensive.
Yeah.
That's expensive even when gas isn't $5 or $6 a gallon.
Right.
So I think that has an appeal for a number of different buyers. I think it was evident. So we were discussing this a few months back, I believe. Andy pitched doing a write-up on an electric Winnebago, if you recall, and we were kind of kicking around the topic, and I was like, I don't know if people are into this. I don't know if it's going to be of interest. And then it performed very, very well. There was a ton of interest in it, and I think maybe that was because this is a segment where the environmental benefit kind of intersects with the financial one, getting away from the gas side. Because there's certain people who will never buy a pull-behind or an RV because it's so hard on the environment. Yeah. And then there are certain people that will, but they want to save money, right? So obviously the cost of this is insane. If the cost, were to maybe go down at some point, if this becomes like mass produced, I don't know if it will, then I see like more widespread appeal, I guess, because you do have those two parties that have an interest in, either the environmental side or the gas saving side.
Or even people who would buy an RV ordinarily, they'd be interested in lessening their impact on the environment, just given that they want to be out there.
Exactly.
So that's when they're looking for their next model. If the costs come down, that could be an option.
Yeah, and Class A RVs are already very expensive, so this is more, but
This is a house. Yeah.
It's a little pricey.
Yeah, I think in looking, I think the technology is cool, and I think it is sort of the thing that leads to the thing. You sort of alluded to that. This technology, in terms of basically creating water from the air, is not new. There is a lot of different models out there for it. One of the biggest hindrances is the fact that this type of system, when you put it at an industrial scale, consumes a ton of energy. So if you're sucking all that energy out of the grid, you're not necessarily doing a whole lot environmentally from pulling all that stuff out of creating water essentially out of the air. Here's the thing that always gets me with this type of technology, especially when you try to put in something that you're driving and you try to simplify it, make it like it's easy. You just plug it in and here you go. that seems like there's the potential to create a lot of problems for people who don't really understand all of the engineering that goes into this vehicle. We've watched that show Homestead Rescue, where people try to live off grid, and they're just like, we're going to move out there and plant some stuff and raise some animals, and
Figure
it'll
it
be
out when we
great.
get there, yeah.
So is stuff like this, I mean, in your opinion, guys, is this just a great start, or are we potentially setting people up for failure because we're rolling this out like, hey, it's got solar panels, and you just go out and you just live off grid, and it's awesome? I mean, are we setting them up for failure there a little bit?
I don't
Are we
know.
gonna
I use stuff every day I don't understand, so I don't know. I don't understand the engineering behind.
Do you roll through the desert with it, though?
I don't understand the engineering behind this laptop, and I still use it. No, it's a little trickier when you're out rolling around through national parks or what have you, but. No, I think people are okay with that to some extent.
Do you have a lot of people that are like jonesing to go live in the desert off the grid and also have $350,000? Just seriously
I mean,
asking?
that's a good point. That's actually the base model. Remember, we're looking. I mean, some of these, when you get all the bells and whistles, it's like $650,000 for some of these things. So,
Because aren't you trying to like stick it to the man and like not have a mortgage or I don't know?
Isn't that what influencers do? They go travel around and make like 7 figures or whatever they do.
Just taking pictures,
travel around all
like
day.
Yeah.
like hey, I made some more water.
Get a Business Insider profile.
Hashtag
hey, I made some more water.
from the air. Hashtag air to water.
Sweet.
I'm gonna do
the other
this.
thing to kind of put in perspective, 5 gallons of water at a max, not a lot.
Yeah, I could put that down pretty quick.
I mean, when you look at just washing dishes, bathing, so if you are looking that you're not going to be completely self-sufficient in terms of what this vehicle can generate, but I do think it's a cool start. I do think it's a cool option to have out there. Seth Barthen, thank you so much for commenting again. And he says that if he's going to pay $350,000 for a vehicle, F the gas. We're getting on the road. I think that's pretty fair, Seth. I think everybody would agree with you on that one. It is not there to look at. Very cool. All right, moving on. Next story. We're going to talk about the next sign that the apocalypse may be upon us here, because we have an Amazon engineer suing for work-from-home internet and electricity compensation. All right, working from home definitely has its pros and cons. We've all experienced that. For one Amazon engineer in California, the cons were so severe, again, he is suing his company. The lawsuit comes from senior software engineer David George Williams. Why he's using all 3 names, that's kind of interesting. On behalf of himself and some 4,000 workers employed by California's 12 Amazon locations. The suit asked that Amazon reimburse workers for electricity and internet costs that rose due to working from home, and argues such costs could range from $50 to $100 a month when workers were told to avoid corporate campuses during the pandemic. His complaint states that this adds up over $5 million when you factor in everybody that's involved. He also says that Amazon violated California labor laws. Amazon, big surprise, says it shouldn't be on the hook for these expenditures because the company was following shelter-at-home orders. Since this has come down the pike, a California judge has rejected Amazon's attempt to dismiss the suit, but did say that Amazon did not violate any California laws. Anna, how is your claim going in trying to get back some of those electricity and internet costs that you had in working from home?
You know, I know that we want to roll our eyes at this because I feel like that's everyone.
You felt me do that as soon as
Yes.
this came out, even though I wasn't in the office when this got posted.
Right, I could
felt it.
hear
You
your
felt
eye
it.
rolls,
Yep.
like just like there's like a clicking noise.
Yep.
I think it's interesting because on the surface it feels a little silly, but when you think about it, I think he kind of has a point. You know, suddenly I think a lot of people were forced to upgrade their home devices, their internet speeds, purchase better webcams, desks, all those things, and a lot of people ate those costs. I did. I mean, we didn't have the internet speed for me to be doing Zoom meetings all the time, and I had to upgrade my internet, all that stuff. Bought a new laptop. I can see why a person, though, maybe who's working for like a multi-billion-dollar corporation doesn't want to do that, doesn't want to eat those costs. That's not really what they signed up for either when they agreed to work for this company.
True.
And there was an office space for them and those things provided, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing I thought was interesting is because there was a precedent about work from home that I'm going to bring up, but I want to be clear that this took place in Germany, not in the United States. Do you guys remember when we covered that story about the man who was working in his home office and he fell down the stairs and then he successfully argued before a judge to be covered under his company's workplace accident insurance policy? So at the time, one U.S.-based analyst said that work-from-home injuries might be the next workers' comp trend. And I think we can easily see the parallel here. it's a bit of a gray area when you consider that remote work became required, and that was outside of what these workers initially agreed to when they joined this firm. And if you suddenly need things to perform your duties that the company formerly paid for, I think it could go either way, honestly. Like, in most cases, I think employees bit the bullet, and maybe it was because they were saving in other areas. But this engineer at Amazon is just saying no, and not my responsibility. And a judge might agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, he is standing firm. I mean, he's rallied the troops, so to speak. He's got thousands of other Amazon employees agreeing with him. Andy, I rolled my eyes just as much at that German worker as I did this guy, so you know where I stand. Where are you at?
Well, I was wondering if after we're done here, we should walk to the corner office and see if we can get some of those costs back from 2020 or 2021. How that would go over there.
I think we got a pretty good idea.
Yeah. No, and I don't want to be flippant about this because there are legitimate issues, gray areas, as you talked about, is about what the employee is responsible for, what the employer is responsible for, and where that line is, it changes. But I think maybe the normal reaction here would just be to count your savings on gas as a win and transit time in California especially as a win and just walk away. If he doesn't want to do that, that's certainly his right, but that's probably where I would have landed on it. But that's where I did land on it, actually, if we're going back a year or so.
You're outnumbered, Anna.
No, that's fine, but I mean, you can see his point, right? I mean,
yes, certainly.
I think what it came down to for me, because I agree with you on the cost, like gas and stuff. There was a lot of savings in terms of not needing to come into the office every day. To me, there has to be some sort of breakdown internally here, because the reality is maybe this individual has some really tough financial times going on. Maybe there's some medical stuff going on. Maybe he's got some personal, private stuff going on, and maybe he went to his boss and said, "Hey, can you help me out a little bit? Like this extra $50 to up my internet, it's hurting me right now. Can you help me out?" And because it is a bigger company, maybe they just put the kibosh on it. It just seems like there has to be some sort of breakdown internally for this to escalate to this level for a company the scale of Amazon. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too simple-minded, and can we all just get along? And this could have been avoided. I don't know. So, all right, moving forward. Next story, one we hardly ever talk about. Stellantis is beginning indefinite layoffs at its stamping plant. The company announced an indefinite layoff at its Chrysler Sterling stamping plant in Sterling Heights, Michigan. It employs approximately 2,184 workers, 2,000 of which are hourly. According to a company statement, the action will help to operate the plant in a more sustainable manner. The automaker did not disclose how many employees would be affected. The UAW Local 1264, posted a letter on Facebook and said the layoffs would begin as early as basically this week, June 20th. The letter also said the indefinite layoff will be from the bottom up. Ugh. So basically everyone is involved. So we're seeing a lot of these stories, Anna. Stellantis is not alone. This Sterling Heights, Michigan facility is not alone. What was your take on some of the things that came out of this one?
Yeah, so this is the world's largest stamping plant. It produces hoods, liftgates, side apertures, fenders, floor pans, roofs. Keep in mind that we also recently covered the series of layoffs at the Belvidere Jeep plant, which is also owned by Stellantis. So Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares has been laying the groundwork, I think, for the last 6 months or so, bringing up some big concerns about EVs. He's saying that a recession could slow EV growth, that governments could potentially drop their incentives due to spending cuts, which is something the Biden administration has not said. Also that there could be material and battery shortages in the coming years, as we know to be likely. But Tavares, I think, specifically is not exactly a beacon of positivity in auto right now. He may be acting a little bit more conservatively than some of his peers in automotive. And he's not exactly wrong about some of these issues, though the incentives thing, I think, seems very speculative. But, other auto companies are struggling a bit as they invest heavily in something that's not really going to yield a return yet to the point where they need it to, right? And I think Tavares resents this. I think that's clear with his statements that he's made. Back in December, he said that the cost burden for EVs was, quote, beyond the limits of what automakers could support. But it also means that he can kind of build a case, I think, for these layoffs and blame the EV shift, something the automakers didn't really ask for but have been thrust into anyway. I don't know if that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
But, meanwhile, they have dumped some money into a sustainable lithium battery company, which was just announced, which will aid the company's ability to kind of tackle Europe EV adoption first, which is actually their plan is to hit a goal of 100% of sales be EVs in Europe by 2030. In the U.S., it's 50% of sales by 2030. So EV's their first target anyway. Or, I'm sorry, Europe's their first target anyway. So I don't know. It seems like a little bit strategic, a little bit sour grapes, like he's just very down on the EV stuff right now, and he's trying to pull back.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, the R&D costs that especially Stellantis is dealing with right now are huge, and those are extremely aggressive goals when you look at a company that doesn't have a top 10 EV seller right now. Okay, so they've got a ways to go. But Andy, they've got some issues other places as well, don't they?
They do. I'm not sure what they exactly mean by sustainably operating here. That was a confusing term for me. Maybe a little...
well, if you don't have anybody working there, you are not creating any emissions. So
maybe economically sustainability more than environmental. But below in a Reuters article about this, a spokesman attributed the decision to production adjustments, this shutdown and another one at an auto plant in Canada, to continued supply chain issues, which we've obviously been dealing with, particularly in auto, for a long time. And then Stellantis, they've been bearish, if that's a word, on the supply chain stuff, particularly semiconductors, for a long time. They said earlier this year, now they don't expect any abatement in that until next year. So we could be dealing with this sorts of indefinite layoff type situations, indefinite stoppages for a while, particularly from this company.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, and to give Stellantis a little bit of a break here, as well as all of the other automakers, the chip shortage is real. Material shortages are real. Labor shortages are real. So there is some issue there. I think one of the things that we're going to continue to see in the automotive sector, is probably as well as some others, is how the impact that forecasting is going to become on everything that they're doing in terms from a production and supply chain perspective. It's so difficult right now. It was thought that actually coming into 2022, Stellantis was actually in better shape from a finished vehicle inventory perspective than a lot of other automakers. So potentially what you could have seen happening, we have enough cars potentially to get us further. They didn't sell as many of those cars. They year over year, all of their models, all of their brands are down in terms of sales. They may still have some stuff on the lots, so they're looking to cut back on production so they don't have additional inventory issues to deal with down the line. So it's going to be interesting. Stellantis is definitely in a trailing place in a lot of different areas in the automotive sector right now. Thank goodness they have the Jeep to help them out a little bit, although we did have some safety stuff we talked about last week.
Yeah.
So they do have a lot of things that they need to address in the short term. Moving on. Our number one story, and just in case anybody was worried that we wouldn't have an Elon Musk or Tesla story, rest assured, we have come through for you.
This is not us, though. This is what the people are reading. We're not just choosing these in a vacuum. This was
the most popular story on our sites this week. Musk says Rivian and Lucid are in deep trouble. In the first of a three-part interview of Elon Musk by the Tesla owner's Silicon Valley Club, the Tesla founder made some bold predictions for potential competitors while retelling how touch-and-go things were at this upstart car maker's beginnings before the brand took off. Musk predicts, big surprise, that unless something changes significantly, Rivian and Lucid will go bankrupt. Rivian, remember, is backed by Amazon and Ford, and it has, I think we talked about 2 weeks ago, had some issues with battery fires, and it did lose about $1.6 billion in the first quarter of this year. Lucid seemingly has almost endless funding opportunities as its partners are in Saudi Arabia, and they've promised to invest billions in buying up to 100,000 EVs. Still, Lucid ran into trouble late last year when it disclosed to the SEC that it had been subpoenaed by government regulators, which it seems like every single EV automotive startup has dealt with at some point in time. According to Musk, unless these companies cut their costs dramatically, they're in deep trouble. They will end up in the cemetery like every other car company, with the exception of Tesla and Ford.
So dramatic.
While he admits to Tesla's troubled start, he says the only American car companies that haven't gone bankrupt are his and Ford. Many people attribute Tesla's success to government handouts, but Musk says this is a common misconception. He says Daimler's $50 million investment in 2009 was essential to the company's revival. He said around the same time of the Daimler investment, Tesla also received a non-binding letter of interest from the Department of Energy for about $500 million in loans. Tesla didn't start receiving that money until 2010, and it was more of an accelerant, not a timeline. Musk says Tesla not only paid back the loan, but had to pay an early repayment penalty. So hey, guys, taxpayers actually made money off Tesla on the deal. In case you were wondering, Daimler also sold its remaining 4% stake in Tesla in 2014 for about $780 million. So he had a lot to say, and this is only the first of 3 interviews that he's going to do about all this. Andy, why don't you dig into our good friend Elon Musk here and his comments?
So there's 2 things here. The first is his comments on the struggles of his would-be competitors in the startup EV sector. And given the large grain of salt you have to eat when you're listening to some of his comments, we'll just deal with that. We'll just put that aside for now. Even if what he's saying is completely true, Tesla didn't turn a profit for, I believe, 18 years. It was 2019 was their first annual profit. It's hard to start a car company. Like, no one should be surprised that these companies are struggling out of the gate. It's what their backers, and I get it, Tesla didn't have the kind of backing from Amazon and Saudi Arabia, but these companies do, and it's a question of how much they're willing to eat to keep them out of bankruptcy until they scale, become financially stable. And it sounds like it's going to be a lot. So I'm not sure what we're really worried about here from that element. Do we want to talk about that first before we get into the other stuff? His comments about the auto graveyard that excludes him and Ford?
Sure.
Okay.
We'll kick it over to, and I know she's chomping at the bit here to talk more about Elon Musk. So.
Well, how, as Andy said, the large grain of salt that you have to take when you listen to Elon Musk's bold predictions. Especially when he's speaking to this car buyers club, which is probably full of like wealthy Tesla enthusiasts in Silicon Valley. Like, might be a bit of a echo chamber for your brand cheerleading. Just a thought. I don't know. While I can appreciate a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to EV startups, because we've seen a lot of them fail, it's unclear to me what kind of insider information that he has here that indicates that he knows more about their situations than we do. But I do think that he has a lot to gain by portraying himself and his company as the best and the brightest in the industry and slamming all the other amateurs that are just teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. And maybe they are, but let's at least acknowledge that the person that has literally the most to gain, if people start to believe that buying Rivian or Lucid is a bad investment, is Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
And we know that Tesla's well established, but it would be at least like unsteadying, I think, the more and more viable EV makers hit that market.
Yep.
And we have no idea the kind of impact that will make on Tesla sales. Sometimes having strong competitors rises everyone up because it is the sign of a healthy market. Or maybe they dig into Tesla sales. We don't know. So if Elon Musk believes the latter, then I think he has a vested interest in kind of dressing down these companies and their efforts.
Yeah.
I mean, he has, again, he would benefit from that. So.
Well, don't you feel like the first question was, so Elon, how you doing? And then the guy just went.
Yeah.
Like he didn't wait for any questions. He just basically had everything he wanted to put out there in his diatribe and went for it. So in my opinion, Andy, I think he was talking about the wrong people when he started talking about his competition. But I know you had some feelings about that too and some of the things he said here.
Well, just without getting into the merits of the bailouts more than a decade ago, I mean, the idea that he can slam those companies and then say, well, we benefited from government programs too, but that's different. I mean, that just, I mean, he might be right, but it just kind of smacks of the type of self-awareness we're used to from this individual. So it's...
Yeah, I mean, he was the one who reaped the benefits of all of those refunds in terms of people buying electric vehicles. Tesla was definitely at the forefront, and he reaped the most benefit from those programs.
He's talking about Daimler investing. Daimler was, or not Daimler, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was Daimler.
Yeah, it was Daimler.
So, I mean, Daimler Chrysler, they got bailed out. So he's talking about
I know.
one and the same. What are we talking about?
Well, and like dollar for dollar we made money? Like, how can you figure that out?
Well, because there was like some sort of penalty because they actually paid back the loan.
No, I get that, but like if you look at all the tax credits that they have received, I don't know if we can exactly make that calculation there.
He can.
I would agree 100%. And why is he going after Lucid and Rivian? Now, first of all, Rivian's not even in their category. They're making trucks. So why is he worried about them? The Cybertruck's not coming out for
forever.
Yeah, I mean, they don't know when that's coming out, so why worry about Rivian? And as far as Lucid goes, man, I would not worry about them. They're going to be there as long as they want to be. There is a never-ending pool of money that they can dive into. They're Scrooge McDuck jumping into, the silo of gold coins to make whatever they want to there. In my opinion, the people he should have been talking about here are Toyota and Honda and some of the established vehicle makers that are lagging in this category. Because think about it right now, if Toyota ever decides they want to get off of the hybrid side and they want to go fully electric with a Camry and a Corolla, that's who Tesla needs to worry about. In my opinion, he should be talking about those people that they are so far ahead of right now and continuing to champion their brand at Tesla and saying how far they are ahead of everyone else and why don't even think about these other guys, or why are you even talking about your competition? Talk about you.
Is it possible that he doesn't believe that they're his competition because Teslas are so cool and everyone's putting out like Nissan Leafs and stuff that are just like, I'm serious question because, like Lucid is cool. People love that car. And when that comes out, I think that could be a real competitor to him.
The price point's a little off, but I would agree from a cool factor. Yeah. And I mean, we saw it with the Mustang, right? We were talking about the Mach-E last week, and that's more in the price range, and it's a performance. It's got the cool factor and all that good stuff going for it, and they had issues with it. But that's his buddy Ford, who apparently he likes for some reason. Yeah, they're friends now.
Weren't they just ragging on him too with the?
Yep.
Yeah.
When they had the whole issue over the E model, right?
Yeah.
That was with Ford.
That too. Yeah.
So, all right, excellent. That's going to wrap up the top 5 stories. And after a word from our sponsor, we will talk about the things that we think you may have missed this week.
Oil Eater's household cleaners, industrial cleaners, and industrial equipment are specifically designed to replace dangerous solvents and are used throughout the world. Our safe water-based formula dissolves grease and grime for almost any surface and leaves a fresh, non-chemical scent. Our ultra-concentrated formulas are perfect for light, medium, or heavy cleaning and can be used on shop floors, in parts washers, to clean equipment, and more. VOC compliant, Oil Eater will do an excellent job in a multitude of applications, safely and cost effectively, while reducing your chemical usage. Safe for the user, safe for the surfaces being cleaned, and safe for the environment. For more information, visit oileater.com or call 800-528-0334.
And we are back. Now we're going to take a look at the stories that still we think could have a big impact on the industry. Just didn't quite get the level of engagement that our top 5 stories did. So starting with you, Anna, what did we miss this week?
All right. So Moody's Analytics says that the average monthly car payment in the U.S. just hit a record high of $712. And there are a lot of factors in play. So Moody's used Cox Automotive data, and they say that the high demand and low supply has discouraged incentives for manufacturers and dealers, leading to high purchase prices, which I think we knew. Yeah. Secondly, interest rates are ballooning, making loans more costly, which I think we also knew. Some analysts, that's what the most interesting part about this article, and it makes a lot of sense, but it's scary. Some analysts believe that car companies don't have an incentive to go back to business as usual. Vehicles are 26% more expensive than before the pandemic. I think this is true, and you're already seeing companies like Ford react to this about changing their dealer network and looking at more build to order.
Yeah.
I think car makers have learned that reluctantly the automotive buyer will wait for a car if they need to. So if it takes, Ford not having to deal with putting stuff out on a lot and waiting for it to sell, just delivering that direct. That's sort of the game of disintermediation, and I don't know how intense it will be, but I think we will see some of that. But another thing that struck me about this article, and I apologize for soapboxing here, but I have to say this. I think there needs to be more compassion for the situation that's impacting the younger generation right now. The next time you feel tempted to say something along the lines of, I worked hard and got X, Y, and Z. Like, today's kids or young adults I don't know. I recently read some comments by Jim Cramer, the financial guru Jim Cramer, and he was talking about how he sees Gen Z customers in the bar that he owns drinking $14 margaritas and then complaining about student loans. And I think these kind of anecdotal references are not helpful because
I thought David calls me a curmudgeon.
Well,
Man, that is the ultimate curmudgeon remark.
I'm just glad we're off millennials. They were the target of that
I know,
for a
and now
long
we're on to
time.
Gen
We're
Z.
past that now.
I just think we have to look at the facts right now. My first car payment out of college was $260. Guess what minimum wage was in my state at that time? Same as it is now.
Yeah.
So, I think these kinds of stories just kind of illustrate how hard it is for some people to move up. Let's stop blaming $14 margaritas and avocado toast and whatever this nonsense. Let's look at the $700 car payments. That and that might not be situational. It might be permanent, right? So, I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of challenges facing. I mean, if you look at what it would cost to pay that car payment on minimum wage, it's 90-something hours, And I know that wages are going up with the market, but we know based on economic data that they're not going up to meet inflation levels, and certainly not people in the bottom bracket of earning. So it's hard out there, is my point. So be compassionate to people who are dealing with that. It's tough.
Well, it is, and I think this kind of runs the gamut in terms of how it impacts people. It depends on your income level and things like that. I think one of the things driving up the car payments, I didn't have a chance to get into the articles deeply, but with cars costing more, if you're going to buy a newer vehicle, which is used cars are crazy right now.
40% higher than pre-pandemic.
So you're almost tempted to then go the new route. So then you're buying a brand new vehicle. Like you said, financing interest rates are so much higher. It's going to drive these payments up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who charges $14 for a margarita?
Jim Cramer does, and then he complains about it, that the people pay it.
We complaining about you.
He's getting that?
I don't know. I was just this is
Honestly.
the most tone-deaf thing. Ugh.
I read that and I thought that's just so much money, but there's a tendency to read averages and then think that's the starting point. And that's not really the case. It's just, it is hard out there, but for every BMW across the street that's sold, there's also, say, a used Hyundai out there to balance it out. So
True.
Without a doubt, when you're seeing, like I said, I've got another daughter I'm looking for a car for. You're looking at a used Corolla with 90 to 100,000 miles on it, and it's still $17,000. Come on.
there was, I can't remember how many weeks ago this story was, but a story about a dealership, and they wanted to help out this person coming in looking for not a handout. They just wanted a decent car for a reasonable price, and he basically had to be like, I don't have anything. They got him or her a car. I can't remember. And he basically told the reporter that they pretty much ate it, but that they just kind of had to find something.
Well, and I wonder what this is going to do from the repair side too, in terms of if you can do without something getting it repaired, are you going to go longer because those parts are getting more expensive? And if you're already paying this much on a monthly basis just to have the vehicle, to keep it maintained is going to become that much more difficult. And then throw in the fun gas prices, and it's just a smorgasbord of smiles.
Well, and then Ford's, I think, CFO also said to Automotive News that they're seeing an increase in delinquencies, which is no surprise, right? But it's
absolutely.
It's really been hard on people.
Well, Andy, let's keep the fun train moving here.
Let's go.
What uplifting news do you have for us, and in case you missed it?
We talked about Toyota and their emphasis on hybrids at the expense of electrics. That's not going anywhere anytime soon on account of this story. It's recalling its new electric car because the wheel could fall off.
Oops.
So the bolts could come loose on about 2,700 BZ4X crossovers globally for a yet-to-be-determined reason. But as you might expect, if the bolts come loose, the wheel could come off, risking a crash in an all-time understatement. Most of those cars are headed to Europe. About 270 are destined for North America. The company said no one should drive them, obviously. And it's, as we've mentioned, not a great look for Toyota, which is desperately trying to catch up because they fell so far behind on electrics in favor of hybrids.
Two things there. First of all, it kind of feels like you get the warning, you can drive it, you just can't sit in it because it can't take the weight. The other thing is, you ever see the movie Gung Ho? It's Michael Keaton movie from the 80s, and they're basically trying to get all these cars finished, and they're trying to drive them off the line, and they're missing parts and stuff because they're trying to get them done. And the first thing to do, starts it up, and whew, it started. And then they put it into gear and drive forward, and basically the two back wheels fall off and the thing skids out. So kind of like that. Check out Gung Ho. Good movie.
All right.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed out when I saw this because I do like this this EV particularly. Although I can never remember its name. What is with its dumb name? It's like a couple letters.
Oh, they explained it. I have it here.
Like BZ456 something. I don't know.
I can't remember. The BZ in the recalled model's name stands for Beyond Zero.
Dumb.
Beyond. Well, isn't everything beyond zero?
I don't. What does that even mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how it could be beyond
like,
zero mathematically.
yeah,
right?
that's
We
like
get into
giving up.
imaginary numbers here.
Toyota gave 110% when they developed this vehicle.
So yeah, don't drive that thing if you bought it. Needs wheels.
Wheels needed. There you go. Do you have to cost less then? You know, we just talked about the high payments. Maybe if you're only buying 3 wheels, get a break.
Yeah, get a deal on tires.
Absolutely. All right, moving forward. In case you missed it, dealt with a company called Ionride getting approval for driverless electric freight vehicles. Freight technology company Ionride announced today that it's received approval, from the NHTSA to operate its autonomous electric transport vehicles on U.S. public roads. So basically summarizing what these vehicles are is they're basically a shipping container on wheels. There's no driver's cab or anything like that. They use all the different driverless autonomous technologies to maneuver around roadways, and they do have somebody sort of back at HQ monitoring the vehicles to make sure that they don't get into trouble, don't go off route, any of that kind of stuff. So it's interesting because we're now to a point where we're looking at this autonomous vehicle technology being sanctioned by government safety regulators. Excuse me, I'm pulling a Manti here at the end.
Whoa.
But now that they're going to try it on public roads this fall. Now, part of me is excited because this could be a huge solution in terms of the shortage of over-the-road trucker drivers. Potentially, these are cleaner vehicles. You would hope more safe, but there's no one in there. And how are you going to feel basically going past a semi with no cab? Nobody in there driving it. You're trusting the technology. You're trusting the individual monitoring. It's almost like a drone pilot, basically, in charge of making sure these people get from point A to point B as safely as possible. And I know you're always a huge fan of this type of technology. What did you think of this one?
Well, you misread me, Jeff, on this because
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. I do like the stuff that is designed for supply chain applications. I mean, I think that the driverless stuff has the most application there right now. I like this photo that is included with both these articles, which just looks like a computer game. It's like an aerial view of just like a
there's
rectangle.
There's no other vehicles with anywhere near it.
Yeah.
So it looks totally fine.
I hope it makes that turn. There's nothing to run into.
It's certainly not going very wide on it. It looks like I would be interested to see what this thing actually looks like, and I do think it will be like a very weird Wild West couple of years when autonomous highway trucks and these type of transport vehicles are deployed on public roads, because people are going to be weird and doing weird stuff to them and in response to them because America. We know
we're humans, yes.
Because we're humans, and we will be surprised and put off. I don't know. It will be weird.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. The trucks on 94 are already weird enough, so I'm not sure what adding one more element to the mix will do. I guess we'll see. I might eat these words. We'll see.
Andy's just leaning into the crazy.
Yeah, sure.
Go for it.
Let's go.
The public road pilot, which will take place in the third quarter of this year, is going to be done at GE Appliances manufacturing facility to complement existing operations that are already in place with Ionride. They're going to be the first to have a fleet of operational autonomous and electric vehicles on U.S. soil in partnership with GE Appliances. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. I think overall it is an exciting concept. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we don't have any issues from a safety perspective.
Rooting for a solid result all around.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. All right, heading into the home stretch here, guys. Final thoughts. Anna, how was your week? Any final thoughts to share?
Yeah, I do have one this week. So we're heading into another hot weekend in the summer, and hopefully everyone will get to relax and maybe spend some time outside. But we get sent a lot of press releases that detail survey information. People are tabulating the market to make their products look great or whatever. We received one today from Fairlife, which is a milk company. milk type.
That's
type of milk.
Coca-Cola's, right?
I think so, yeah. They did this weird summer survey about how popular milk is in the summer, which I will debate just on merit already. But they dropped a stat in there that I would like, if anyone is listening and wants to tell me if they think this is legit or not. 43% of survey participants said that they like using milk in summertime cocktails. That is not real. There's no way that's real.
I mean, is a milkshake a cocktail?
Well, I mean, to who? Like a
You're
child?
talking about like a
I mean,
grasshopper?
that's the only way you could see that being applicable. Like, I don't know. That's a weird one.
Yeah, if anyone agrees with that statement, that you like using milk in a summertime cocktail, please email the podcast and let us know how you are using the milk.
Milk as a cocktail.
We should go on the recipe internet here and see what we come up with.
Milk cocktails.
Yeah.
Because I got to tell you, there's so many other things out there. Have you heard of beer? Like, that's very refreshing.
Jim Cramer's $14 margarita.
Right, yeah. Any of those.
Hey, no
any of
milk.
those.
Yeah, I think as soon as you brought that up again, I was thinking of the Ron Burgundy line. Milk was a bad choice.
So hot.
Andy, any final thoughts, milk related or not?
I got some high culture, I do believe, for you guys. Have you guys been to the American Players Theater before?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have never been. I'm going tonight, first time. We're going to
Nice.
see Hamlet. This,
Ooh.
for people who don't know, this is an outdoor amphitheater setting in Wisconsin, about an hour west of where we are right now, and they do mostly Shakespeare. So we're headed out there tonight. Going to grab some, I think, Culver's on the way to balance out the highbrow.
There you go.
Oh,
There you
see,
go.
yeah.
I shouldn't say Culver's is lowbrow. I love Culver's, but it's fast food, and we're going to go see Hamlet.
Yeah,
a
you're
live
gonna
production
see-
of Hamlet. So
You're going to see a lot of charcuterie boards
Nice.
at that place.
It's pretty chill, though. I mean,
Yeah.
it's an awesome setting. I actually saw A Midsummer Night's Dream
Nice.
out there. It was a cool. It's an incredible environment. Yeah, it's out in the woods. And it's very
Beautiful,
cool.
yeah.
it happened because I roasted my wife for not reading Hamlet in high school because I was always taught that was like the
Yeah.
Shakespeare play. So they never read it where she was. So
I never read that one either. Romeo and
a good
Juliet,
one.
but not Hamlet.
Yeah, so
Hamlet's a
she's
good one.
going to get to know Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
yeah, we
oh my God, that was the nerdiest thing I've ever
we
said.
each
Sorry.
did the Wikipedia thing to make sure we were like knew the plot going in because
Yeah.
iambic pentameter and all that. So.
Well done.
So I will report back on
Have-
the
yeah,
on
have
the performance
fun.
of Hamlet. Yeah,
Culver's is a good call, though.
yeah.
Always.
Well, we're going up to Door County a couple weeks, and I'm actually checking out a place up there. It's like the North Woods Theater or something like that. It's like in the middle of the woods. Looks pretty sweet too. It's kind of an
Whoa.
outdoor performing arts theater type thing. So should be cool. All right, I am going to just get right into the trivia because I'm extremely excited. First of all, I want to say thanks to John D. Always send us in great notes on the podcast, different things that we're talking about. Thanks again for sending that in. Congrats to Tom and a couple of others who also got the trivia question right. But most importantly, Nick Barman, after 3 straight weeks of the silver medal,
Did he do it?
he got it.
Yes.
Nailed it. Most importantly, there is still peace within the Barman household, even after his wife got the trivia question correct before he did. They're good. They've come to agreement on everything there. So good standing. Excellent. Good to hear from Nick. Just to recap, the question from last week was which toy company had gotten the most level of engagement over the past year on our websites. The choices were Barbie, Hasbro, Mattel, Nintendo, and Lego. The winner, guys? Lego is kind of far and away. We've talked about them a couple times. They were the clear winner, although we did get a lot of people talking about Mattel and Hasbro, and we talked about a lot of their supply chain issues. So keeping on sort of the common theme of companies and engagement level on our site, we started off the podcast talking about Food Company and Kellogg. So which of the following food companies in the past year have got the highest level of engagement on our site? Is it PepsiCo, which would also include Frito-Lay, Kellogg's, Mondelez, Tyson, or JBS?
Whoa, this
JBS is the meat processor. Remember, they had a lot of stuff going on.
This is a tough
I feel
one.
like I should have a good guess on this, but I'm not sure I do.
So again, which one is it? Pepsi, Kellogg's, Mondelez, Tyson, or JBS? Email the podcast, jeff@ien.com. All right, I think that's going to wrap everything up. I want to say thanks to Alex and Eric behind the scenes, making everything flow smoothly. And again, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. To email the podcast, you can get a hold of any of us, Jeff, Anna, or David.
Or Andy.
podcast@IAN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also head to our sites to subscribe to our daily and weekly newsletters. For Anna and Andy, I'm Jeff Ranke saying thanks for joining us for the Today in Manufacturing podcast.